Hey everyone, I'm glad that not everyone left after this homegrown. So yeah, I flew in from New York, but I didn't fly in just for this. So pressure's off. Thanks for listening. It's great to be here, and thanks for Pippa for inviting me. It's a great pleasure to be here. So Hitmakers, what does that mean? When Loewe. Okay, let's start with the tomato. When a user, with a Twitter user last summer, posted a photo of a tomato and said, "This looks so Loewe, I can't explain why," the tweet generated 98,000 likes at that moment and counting. 2 days later, Jonathan Anderson posted on his Instagram, "Loewe meme to reality." The catch was, Jonathan couldn't have made that bag in 2 days, and he didn't. He made that bag a long time before. And this is first-hand information. Washington Post fashion critic Rachel Tashan, when we were talking in New York last month, she was like, I texted Jonathan and was like, "Did you make that because of that?" And he was like, "What are you talking about? This like production takes like 9 months, like at least, you know?" So something was in the air. And that's what the book is about, something in the air, the zeitgeist, the way that we deem something desirable, the way consumers make decisions has more to do with the zeitgeist than with our personal choices. We are influenced at any point when we think, oh, I really am into this and I'm really not into that, by what others think, but what we see in our feed, but what we are scrolling down, what we are watching on TV, what we see on the streets. So reading culture for brands is a really big business. Andy Warhol said, good art is good business. And if brands know how to influence culture through their products, through their images, through their stories, through their narratives, they can make more money. So the brand strategy is the strategy of cultural influence, and these are the elements to capitalize on. The first one is entertainment, and it has 3 components. The first one is what giant brands like LVMH, like Kering, or Nike are doing. They're creating entertainment studios in their own right. 22 Montaigne Iron Waffle Entertainment that Nike has, Saint Laurent Studios. They're making movies in their own right. They're dramatizing stories about Coco Chanel, Dior, about even Emilia Perez from Saint Laurent Studios packed with Saint Laurent products. This is the way to give products context and meaning and to make them more desirable. So that is one way for brands to get into entertainment. The second one is to literally start creating snippets of always-on fun content like Jacquemus does. So that's kind of like, let's go on social media, let's keep churning out fun little memes, or Loewe does. Because Jonathan Anderson went all the way in, let's not stop just at content, let's start creating products like a tomato that is super fun, that's gonna be super Instagrammable. But then the third way is in the domain of strategy, which means how do brands, which have nothing to do with film or TV or content, start marketing their products in a way that's similar to entertainment products, which means how do you start to create a teaser, another teaser, a trailer, another trailer, red carpet, VIP, opening night, and then finally a release. How do you change your campaign from not being released at the same time when you have a new collection or a product drop to teasing it much sooner in sort of culture to prepare before you drop a product. The second one is how to have not a celebrity person. Brand ambassadorship has long been done before, but how to have a celebrity product. Like, why has a Stanley Cup, a company that has, Stanley is a company that existed for more than 100 years, and all of a sudden, Stanley Cup exploded because someone posted a TikTok video of a burnt car with only Stanley Cup standing. That's a celebrity product because it is something that becomes synonymous with the brand. Burberry trench, Erewhon smoothie, Calvin Klein briefs, or a Louis Vuitton millionaire speedy bag, they all become synonymous with their brands. Their purest distillation of what the brand stands for. So that's a hit is, what is that hero product that the brand has? Then a creative universe. Very few brands have a creative universe. Prada is one of those rare examples. They have everything from a spacesuit to a museum, to a cafe, to obviously stores, to specific style, to sponsorship of tales and tellers movies, to any sort of domain of culture they have covered in one unified way. To have a universe, a brand needs to have a point of view, an aesthetic, and visual and verbal handwriting. And then a story. So the entire culture is a story. It's a story that humans, that we tell ourselves and each other to make sense of the world. It's a way that we imbue our existence with meaning. It's a pointer what we need to pay attention to, what we can ignore, how do we relate to each other. It's also a story that we tell ourselves how to relate to each other. Brands are part of that mega story. They give products context and meaning. When we buy something, it also tells a story about ourselves. Fandom is also another element. For brands today, it's not enough to have just customers. To stay relevant and to grow, they need fans. The example here is of Whole Foods 2.0, so to speak. It's Erewhon, is an LA-based health market that sells $27 American dollars strawberries. They sell $20 smoothies. They collaborate with celebrities like Hailey Bieber that has strawberry glaze smoothie. So that's a true story. People line up around the block to get a $20 smoothie that tastes like it's very, very sweet. It's very sticky. It has like date, but like people are obsessed. It's not. The point is not to have a smoothie and to have. The point is to photograph it, to be there. It's like where you go to see a celebrity, and those super fans, they go there to see and to be seen and to tell others. This grocery store is probably the most popular grocery store in the entire United States. They have only one store in LA. They ship nationwide, and I think their margins are better than anyone else. They're making more money than anyone, including in their merch that you can see here. They partnered with Balenciaga the other year, and they had like some black juice that was made just for that. The amount of press they get is insane. So thanks to the fans. So merch is, you're all familiar, is the way that you productize a brand experience. And then you have styling. In visual culture, creativity is all about remix, recombination, memes, sort of reshuffling and remixing. You can have the same products that are made in many, many, many different combinations. And that's sort of what brands are banking on when you have TikTok trends, which is like coastal grandma, eclectic grandpa, dark academia. All of that is happening at the same time, and it's a crazy speed. And the point is not to follow those trends, but to release products that can fit into all those trends through different kinds of styling. And then content. Everything is content today. And content is a part of a new revenue stream. Michelin's company figured out that with their Michelin guide, they can make so much more money than with their tires. They started with like hotel reviews first, then restaurant reviews, because if you have somewhere to go with your car, you're going to wear out your tires. The restaurant reviews were born through that new content stream. So today, a lot of magazines, they're going into different experiential venues, but then also you have a lot of different brands that are going into content production. 032C is a German, Berlin-based magazine. They started as a magazine. They have a gallery. They have a fashion brand that presents at the Berlin Fashion Week. They're fashion brands, like, again, let's go to Miu Miu, that publish books, that publish magazines. But again, even if you don't go that far to publish anything, just open social media feed and consider the editorial and content strategy that is happening there. Collaborations are productization, creating hits out of an aesthetic. So here we have Formula One and Lego, and in recent years, Formula One has been on a roll in a sense that anything that can be monetized will be monetized. Their sponsorship that LVMH has done, but then also their fandoms, female fandoms. 40% of Formula One fans are young females. And then merch that's happening around there. Collaborations with not just Lego, but you have PacSun, which is like an American brand that they have like complete like product lines that are coming around it, everything that's happening around races in terms of how do you, any moment that is celebrated. They have like collaboration with like famous chefs. They have collaboration with high-end hospitality experiences. Any part of the customer journey is opportunity for collaboration. And then the intellectual property. The moment that brands figured out that they can monetize their past, it just became about printing money. It's like, okay, let's bring out the archives. Let's like wheel out like our old campaigns. Are there any motives that we haven't monetized yet? Are there any old advertisements that we haven't used? That's why you have like Alexander McQueen like printing skulls on scarves. That's why you have new Chloe bag. That's why the saddle bag has been brought by John Galliano but at Dior, but his rebrought bag by Maria Grazia Chiuri like now. So it's kind of like past has been rebrought together like at every generation. And nostalgia is not just a mode, it's a product in itself. Like selling nostalgia is a product, is literally how you package intellectual property. And then in a visual culture that we are now, aesthetic is all that matter. So brands that have a signature aesthetic, they create worlds around it and they're able to monetize it more than those that do not have. When you say, this is Ferrari, by the way. So Ferrari was like, why do we make only cars? We can make clothes and we can go to fashion week and we can be a high-end brand, you know? So if we are competing in Grand Prix, Formula One, as a Ferrari, you probably need something to wear there. And not only that, we can translate the point of view, the ethos, into how you look. And they can now go, thanks to that aesthetic territory, thanks to that visual culture that they're projecting, very far away from that original kind of territory that they're occupying. And then also in visual culture, in order to participate in that culture, you don't need to even buy anything. You don't need to participate in the market. You don't need to buy a Birkin bag in order to post a photo of a Birkin bag. And with AI, you can imagine all sorts and create all sorts of crazy stuff without actually owning them. And then at the end is like the 3D brand experience, which is retail experience. There it comes together. That's your content in 3 dimensions as a physical object. That's your intellectual property. That is your story. And so when we put all of that together, these hits, potential hits, these cultural products are the way how brands tell a story. Brands used to tell their stories through traditional advertising, through out of home, through PR, through TV advertising, radio, through big campaigns. Now they tell them through these cultural products. These cultural products are literally productization of what the brand stands for, of the brand experience, of the brand emotion. And when we think about that, cultural hit making is the strategy of cultural influence through a portfolio of products directed at niche audiences with the greatest financial impact. And this is important because when traditional advertising was directed at the monoculture, it was like, you know, you buy TV at the Super Bowl, and a lot of brands are still doing that because sports are one of a very, very, very few moments where you get a lot of people watching at the same time. You have that monoculture that a lot of people are looking. cultural products are aimed at subcultures, at niches, at communities. Merch is not going to appeal to the same group, same community as a collaboration is. Content is not going to be for the same group of people as maybe archive issue is going to be. Entertainment is not going to be entertaining for a niche as it's going to be for some other taste community. So what is important here is to really see that this cultural influence can be possible. You influence culture only if you influence cultures. At any point in time, global culture is a lot of different cultures and subcultures. There is no such thing as a pop culture anymore. We have a lot of different cultures. And then when we say portfolio of products, which means there is no one strategy that we go. Brands need to release, and brands do release, a lot of cultural products at the same time. This entire portfolio that I went through, and in different cultural contexts. And some of them are going to be successful, and some of them are not. So in order to have a few hits, you need to go to the market with a lot of different cultural products. For example, Fight Club was not a hit when it was released. Blade Runner was not. So in order to get to eventually some of them becoming hits, you need to have a lot of them. So now, why is all of that important? Because the way we are creating cultural products, we need a new approach. It needs to be different than before in terms of process, and I'm going to get to that. This number reflects what McKinsey study found, that companies that prioritize creativity have 67% higher organic revenue growth than those who do not. So creativity has superior business value. Even though it has a superior business value, it's often siloed in traditional creative departments like marketing or creative or design. So in order to take that from there and put it in the entire organization, brands need to first change the approach. So right now we are in a situation that the pressure for creative production is such that efficiency is prioritized over original creative content. This pressure for efficiency leads to reboots and sequels and Fast and Furious 17. That's basically what we get. There were 315 sequels in production right now for the next year. And basically, Netflix literally briefs its authors to create content for ambient viewing. That means Netflix, you're watching something while you're doing something else, while you're scrolling your phone. Netflix algorithm also said, put Nicole Kidman in every movie you possibly can, which respect, as you should. But we got Baby Girl, we got Expats, we got something called Holland. We then got, I'm blanking out, but there is a Perfect Couple. We got that. It's basically the same role over and over and over again. That's what you get when you say, hey, this is working. Let's make more of what's working again. And that's the same thing in fashion. AI, 71% of fashion brands say, hey, yeah, we use AI because it's telling us what worked well before. Let's make more of what worked before. And that's what we get with Nike Pandas. Once upon a time, pandas were like something that's like the coolest, the most innovative, the most original thing ever. But then Nike figured out, like, look, pandas are selling really well. Let's make them in all colors, in all different materials. And now you have like everyone wearing them, and no one who cares about their reputation ever is going to be caught seen wearing pandas. So that is sort of what the culture we are getting. You're getting frozen in the same taste zone because the algorithm is giving you more of what you liked before. And the situation is the same with music. Basically, in 2022, 80% of all music was older than 18 months because people are getting like whatever they liked before. And then the beginning of songs, in the first 30 seconds, you have the same melodic structure because people are deciding what are they going to listen to in the first 30 seconds based on what they're like hearing. An algorithm figured out, is like, if they like what they're hearing in the first 30 seconds, they're going to continue. And this is what they're liking. So we are basically starting to create for efficiency, for the algorithm, for productivity, because the speed of cultural production is such that it doesn't allow you to create something that's off the grid for the algorithm. But off the grid for the algorithm is actually the future of cultural production, and I hope we can get to that in questions. The same situation is with apps. Gen Z can't differentiate between brand apps, so good luck with that. So in the entire world of this creative production situation, we are forced as brands to say, hey, what is the solution here? To have original creative output, you need to set the business for it. And that means literally combining creative part of the organization that is in charge for idea generation with the part of the organization that is in charge for idea commercialization. So traditionally, it's no wonder that companies are sort of prioritizing efficiency. No wonder that it's all about productivity, because in siloed organizations, at least the ones I worked, I was at Banana Republic, I was at Esprit, I was in a lot of agencies, and what I've seen is like you have silos. You have creative department, you have design, you have merchandising, you have marketing, you have finance, and so you have like channels and so on. So everyone is doing basically their job. So, and there are departments who are in charge of coming up with ideas, and there are departments who are in charge of commercializing those ideas. How do we sell this? So that's a traditional organizational structure, and of course there is going to be like those guys are selling, and they're going to tell guys who are coming up with ideas, give me more of those ideas that are selling. And that's the basic kind of friction here. So now, in order to overcome, in order to really create this new way of creating cultural products, you need to combine the two. And the way to combine the two is through that sort of, to create a new process. And that's not easy. It's possible. It's possible. It's not easy. And the way to do that is basically how to make your CFO the best friends with your CMO. How to create a situation where everyone sits in the same room. How to turn your creativity from an output to the approach. And that is the main thing. Most companies are still prioritizing efficiency and sort of productivity, because that's easy to measure. That's why you have so much performance marketing. In the short term, you can easily measure things that are efficient. You cannot easily measure, you can measure things like, oh, how much money did we make on merch? How much money did we make on collaborations? How much money did we make on archive reissues? You can, but you have to have a very realistic timeline. And that's why you have, as a creative, as a chief brand officer, chief marketing officer, chief creative officer, to be the best friends with the CFO. You say, hey, we're going to know we are on the right track. In a year, we're going to see results. But in 9 months, 6 months, 3 months, these are going to be the indicators that we are doing right. And the way to do that is to basically spread the accountability. So the biggest challenge right now is how to spread that accountability. And the biggest thing is to really combine what the creativity is. Creativity is not just that output, just that campaign. Creativity is how you approach problems, because you never know what's going to work. Culture is an ambiguous market. In ambiguous markets means the future is unpredictable, the outcome is unpredictable. And it is unpredictable precisely because of what we talked about at the beginning, because of the zeitgeist, because we are very influenced by each other. If the social influence is unpredictable, you don't know what's going to be in the air. So in order to do that, it's kind of combining the finance, it's combining the cultural impact with the revenue growth. And that is a remedy. That's what I'm excited about in my work. That's what I'm excited what I work with my clients. That's what I'm excited about in my chief brand officer job. How do you combine finance with culture? Because reading culture is a really good business. Thank you very much.
Hello, Anna. How are you? Hello,
Very
everyone.
well.
Hi, I'm Nikki Brigger. I'm the General Manager of Luxury at Our Media. And welcome, Anna. That was fascinating. Thank you so much. All I wanted to say was Tokyo, Sydney, Melbourne, Cairns, and New York. How are you feeling in just 1 week?
Actually. I don't know where I am, but I'm feeling great. No, I'm kidding.
I was going to say, I'm surprised you could make any sense after that incredible itinerary. I just want to start, this is a burning question for me. You completely transformed Banana Republic and Esprit, and I think it was 27% growth year on year in your first year, which is incredible in sales. Everyone would want that. What brand would you want to transform or revive if you could have anything in the world?
Anything? I think Victoria's Secret, actually.
That's a good
Victoria's Secret, yeah, because it's, you know why? Because again, there's like something is in the air. What is sexy today? And then you have this like really clunky, really old school, really relevant brand that hasn't changed in forever. And then how do you really change how do you use that brand to change what sexy means? And then especially this is a crazy fact that Gen Alpha loves Victoria's Secret pink, all those little lotions and lip glosses. I don't know why, don't ask me why. But you know, it's kind of the next generation, that's an opportunity, so yeah.
True. And also a bit of damage control, having to, you know, move it on from...
and they had this like new, they brought back the show, but it was so tame, you know, like it's kind of
really
like brands
work,
don't
did
want to take risks,
No,
you know?
I totally agree.
Yeah.
So with your book Hitmakers, and congratulations by the way,
thank you.
Gobbled it up in an afternoon. You talk about brands creating sort of cultural moments, so you know, cultural influence strategy, which I love. Can you ever really predict or plan to influence culture?
You can definitely set that up, but mostly in terms of that mechanism. When you say, hey, we are going to do this portfolio, we have all of this playbook at our disposal, and we're going to say, hey, we're going to choose like these subcultures really, and because these are relevant for our brand. You know, like right now there is like Americana as an aesthetic is really big. You have Cowboy Carter, you have like cowboy boots everywhere, you have that kind of aesthetics and those codes. And as a brand, you can see, hey, how is that relevant for me? How does that connect with my products? And then you look who are creators in that realm. And then you look like, oh, what is the sort of visual handwriting there? Where do I need to go? What do I need to do in that sense? Who are the influencers? And then you create, through your brand, you create cultural products for that. So you set that mechanism, that strategy, and then you sort of riff off in terms of cultural output. Yeah, but the second part of my presentation is really more important in a sense of saying, hey, but you really need to start doing it differently because you have to prioritize which creative output is going to give you the best financial results. It's not that you're asking for money and you're like, sorry, I have no idea. Like, how is this going to work? Because then that money is going to go to performance marketing. It's really changing how you put KPIs, what the KPIs are and what the timelines are.
And I suppose there would be some products that totally surprise you.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know, that you would have not, we were talking about the tomato before, but I mean, it's just, I mean, it's insane, and that was in production, but who would have known that was such a viral sensation?
But who would have known, but at the same time, Jonathan Anderson has been creating that universe, that world, that sort of story for years. So it kind of primed the culture. That's like what that's that story, primed the culture to expect something like that. So when people saw that, it didn't come out of nowhere. It was like, oh, this is Loewe, because he literally created that filter and point of view and aesthetic view of the world that people are like, oh, this is Loewe. That
almost surrealist view of the world.
Exactly. So that was applied. So it was not weird.
Yeah. And what about, what sort of top cultural moments created by brands do you have in your head that you are the pinnacle for you?
Well, I think that changes all the time because it has to, right? I think that like that spacesuit by Prada was like left field because like why? You know, it doesn't make any sense, but it also does. Because and then Prada has this like yacht race, you know, it was, and I think that Formula One is becoming really big because there was like 2 weeks ago in Miami was a Grand Prix, and you have to, in US it was not big at all. This is only 2 years old, and Vegas before that, but the kind of speed it took over just tells you that the culture was right, especially among young women. So that is a cultural moment. And then there was that Netflix show that was, I'm forgetting the name, something with, exactly. So you know what I mean? That is sort of, the time was right, then that accelerated, and then that was the right.
Exactly. So there were different cultural points that all fed
one
into
thing
it.
leads to another, yes.
I mean, on the topic of luxury, it is such a huge time. There are so many changes. It's almost like a chessboard at the moment with all the designers moving, you know, Dior, Gucci, Loewe, as you mentioned before. What are you most excited about and why?
I don't think any of that is that exciting, you know, because that I think it's a great question, but I think for consumers, for like regular people who go on about their lives, who cares? Really, right? I mean, because that's kind of like something that's been going on in...
Who needs a tomato bag?
Well, they care about that, you know? And I think it's more exciting, like, what is happening with people like Lewis Hamilton, you know? Or like people who are doing fun things in their own right, you know? Like Grace Wales Bonner. Like, for example, like, you know, those, and Adidas, like those who manage to kind of cover a lot of different cultural areas at the same time, but also, like, they manage to be cool and then grow without losing that cool, you know? That is what excites me. That's what I'm sort of monitoring without kind of, that's what is, how do you become invisible to algorithm, you know? Because once algorithm gets, it becomes mass. You know, everyone is wearing the same thing, everyone is looking the same way, you know. The West Village girl is now the big aesthetic, you know. It's kind of like also predictable, you know, and then it spreads around the globe and so on. But really having that coolness and others knowing about that, but that
and then wanting to jump on board, exactly,
but
and
not
emulate.
being mass, not losing that edge, that's what interests me.
I mean, you did say on, I think it was X a couple of weeks ago, you were saying how the algorithm has created this cultural freeze, which I thought was brilliant. You know, and I think you said it was like being asleep, culturally asleep. How do brands, you know, if anyone CMOs in the room, how do you cut through that? Do you think that's why outdoors become so popular?
I think outdoors, but then also, again, how do you keep evolving your taste? And I think we forgot about that because everything is ready-made. You open your feed and there is like so many of those like mood boards, and you kind of like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna like buy those things. And there is so many options that are also packaged in such a way that everyone ends up looking the same. That's that styling.
Exactly.
Because they're like, you have 5 styling options out of all possible options out there, so that's kind of like all roads lead to, you know, algorithm leads all, like, no matter where you start, you end up in the same. So I think it's kind of, we sort of forgot what that connoisseurship means, in a sense that you really need to put an effort, you know, like before the internet. Let's imagine that. And when you're like, oh, you want to really be into jazz, you really had to go to the shops, you really need to know who to ask. You really need to go to the clubs. You really need to, like, kind of when you travel, you need to, like, it was not easy, you know, to educate yourself and to refine your taste. So I think that if you really want to do that, you need to go back to that. But that means not a lot of people are going to know about you, and you're not going to broadcast that to a lot. Because once you start broadcasting, algorithm is going to pick up.
So I suppose it's, you know, you're talking about the connoisseurs, you know, so that's really sort of going deep and going hard into that and then hoping that it sort of grows from there.
Well, I think there is a lot
because it gets the cool factor.
There are a lot of like niche magazines, a lot, and they're like very there is like tennis, there is like soccer, there is basketball, there is, I don't know, family style, which is like, oh, lifestyle, but there is fashion, there is food, there is interior design, you know, so there is a lot of that, and they have their little fan community around that and their little niche, and they don't want to be big, they don't want to grow, you know, they kind of want to keep that, and that's the opposite of this big sort of advertising driven platforms, so to speak, you know.
The LVMH machine.
Right.
Yeah, which it really is. I mean, back to luxury, I mean, during COVID, obviously it just exploded, and I don't think anyone really expected that. And now, of course, everyone's, you know, wanting double-digit growth, and it's now on the decline. What do you think the future of luxury is?
Well, I think there are futures, because what LVMH is doing is really that massification. That's not luxury, that's fashion. You know, like all those collaborations,
Yes,
all those
true.
like hype masters, like Pharrell, amazing, but these are the ones that like really grab attention and create those spectacles and create sneakers, creates Millionaire Speedy, creates like all those attention grabbing moments. That's not really, that's fashion, really. And that you need to start constant novelty. They brought back Murakami from 25 years ago to create the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? The exact same thing. And Murakami is a great artist, and like, why create the same thing? But it was copy-paste, you know?
Yeah, that's right.
It was
revenue driving.
well, printing money, you know?
Yeah.
And there was a line around the block for next generation, and you know, you can say, oh, that's just a genius move, because if it worked once, it's going to work again for the next generation, blah, blah. You know, but like, okay, so that. But then you have Hermes, who are like, no, we're going to keep creating X amount of Birkin bags, and we're not, the hype that's created is created by fans and by those waiting lists, not by marketing at all. And then the halo is so big that the people are going to be buying, I don't know, lipsticks and, I don't know, scarves and, you know, ready to wear or whatnot, but actually they want a Birkin. That's the halo. They didn't innovate. They didn't create a new product in 42 years. Birkin was created in 82 or 83 or something. You know, and so that is sort of luxury. And then you have like brands like Chanel again, but then it's also like, what is that pyramid? Who are those ultra luxury? You have Chanel Beauty that's sold online, but then you have Chanel that's not, that you have to go to store. But then even within stores, you have VIPs, you know. So I think there are a lot of scenarios within luxury, but LVMH is not sort of the model, I would say, yeah.
And so what brands do you think are really winning at the moment, who, you know, have really made you sort of, you know, stand up and notice?
Like in life or in luxury?
Well, I was thinking fashion, but it actually can be anything, because it doesn't, you know, like you were talking about the, you know, the cup, the water, it doesn't really matter, does it? As long as they actually make a statement and cut through.
Well, I think Prada has been on a roll recently, but there is an asterisk. No one thought about Prada 10 years ago. In 2010s, no one. But that is again, going back to that second part of my presentation, it's a family-owned brand. They can afford to lose money, to be irrelevant for 10 years, and then to make a lot of money, because they're going to be irrelevant again. Give them another 5, and something is, the winds are going, of culture are going to shift, and no one is going to like. The same with what happened with Gucci. It was super fun, and then it was not. Because consumers changed their minds, they went somewhere else. You know, like that like gender neutral, like that loud was not, you know.
Oh, the Alessandro.
But, right, but they're all part of, like, because Gucci, like 70% of Kering depends on Gucci, the boat sank. You know, but Prada does have sort of that coffers are full of money, so they can win, you know. So, and Hermes is also a family-owned business, so that they have very close relationship between Prada and her husband and CEO, like they're all, you know, they're all family.
That's right. So they can afford to take a few risks.
They can, and when the times are good, great. When they're not, they're like, you know, let's weather this out and let's, you know, see, because Lotta Volkova, the stylist for Miu Miu, and, you know, she came, whatever, 5 years ago, she created the looks, one of the very rare brands that innovate in terms of looks. So I think they're on the roll now, but who is kind of changing, like, that is the thing, that's what I was saying. There is no one brand that is commanding the attention. The times when Pepsi could put Pink and Beyonce and Britney Spears in an ad and everyone's mind was blown, that's done, that's over. You don't even can name the Super Bowl ads, you know, even I can name in the US, not much less people around the world who don't even watch.
Unless it's Jeremy Allen White in a pair of underwear. That does have cut through.
Yes, because that sex sells.
Yes.
That's number.
And nothing's ever changing that.
Nothing's ever, but also because that was released just before the award season when he won all the awards.
So there was a zeitgeist moment.
There is a zeitgeist, and he's an underdog, and culture loves an underdog, and he plays an underdog in the show, and you know, it was
all
a
aligned,
perfect storm. But then Calvin Klein didn't do anything with it. Nothing. They let the moment go.
I know, because sales
Let the
actually
moment go.
declined, didn't they?
At least they should have put that out of home, like literally here, and printed it on a shirt and sell it as merch. Seriously, at least.
Oh, it was a 20% down, I think, wasn't it?
It was down at the same time, but that is because the revenue is lagging indicator of brand.
That's true.
So they should have kept it. That is literally, they should have said, look, like CFO, it's going to take a minute, let's keep it. They just let it go, and they put Bad Bunny in a pair of briefs, but it's amazing. Like they have this giant billboard on Lafayette Street, and everyone is like, oh my God. But there is nothing else happening with Bad Bunny.
Yeah, no, good point. So you've been on Forbes' list as a most influential CMO 3 times now.
I know, but you know what? Like,
it means nothing.
Well, you know, I think at this point there are more people who were on that list than who were not. So let's just. I mean, I've been 3 times. Come on, it's like no, like
look,
no
I think
disrespect.
I was on that list.
No disrespect. I'm very happy, very happy. Better to be on it than. But at this point, you know, we're going like.
I get it. Have you had any sort of epic fails? And what have you learned from them?
I mean, esprit, hello, but you know, that is also one of those things that the brand can be amazing, like marketing department, creative department, design department, brand department can do all the right things. That was the dream team. That was everything. We did everything right. We did a lot of things from cultural influence strategy, and that's the first time when I was like, oh my God, this is actually working. You know, this was. That is the way to really do it. But if you don't have the business part figured out, when you don't have really the channel planning done, when you don't have sort of operational part done, when you make a series of bad business decisions when it comes to things like how long are those leases for? Where do we open new stores? How quickly you open new stores? Those decisions, they're the ones who are, those decisions make or break a brand at the end of a day. Like you can lead with amazing, but you really do need to have a buttoned up
the product,
business planning. The product was getting there. Like we had signature products, the quality was going up, the product pyramid was in place. That was all, but there was a disconnect between the channel planning, the franchises, the wholesalers, the direct to the channels, the owned and operated channels. I don't want to bore you, but it's unbelievable. In the best of times, it's unbelievably difficult business. And these are not the best of times.
True. Okay, I've got a very selfish question for you. I oversee Murray Clare & L, and obviously they're legacy publishing brands, and we have, you know, we're multi-platform, etc. But how do I future-proof these brands and basically move from being storytellers, which we really are, but also influencing culture, you know, as you've said that's what everyone needs to do to remain relevant?
I think you have fantastic brands and fantastic brand names that have a lot of associations and meaning in culture already. And as storytellers, I think that you shouldn't move away from that at all.
Well, as you were saying, storytelling is really the crux of everything,
and you
isn't
already have that, and you have like heritage and history of that. It's just more how to use cultural products to tell that story beyond the formats that you already have. And this is the entire playbook that we talked about here that you have at your disposal. Going beyond that, what is the retail experience? What are the collaborations? What is who are your fans? How do you activate those biggest fans?
I might have to talk to you later about that. We'll map that one out. And also for everyone here who might be a CMO or in marketing, etc. I mean, what would be sort of your burning advice that you would leave?
Well, again, like make a CFO your best friend, and also start thinking about like financial accountability. It's really about how everything fits together, which means like results, the sales, the revenue is not the end point, it's a starting point. And you say, hey, if this is your annual revenue goal, how do you break that down? What is your quarterly revenue? And then what are your volume drivers and margin drivers? What are those key products that you need to sell? In which channels? And then how do we then come in? What creative is gonna, what are your key target groups? And then, so this is how it needs to go. And then it's very easy to kind of know what you need to do, what cultural products you need to contextualize those products, and sort of like what are the KPIs there and how to prioritize your creative actions, your cultural actions, when you literally mapped out where you need to show up, what products you need to show up, who do you need to show up with. So that is, but then you need to involve everyone, from merchandising to channel planning to financial planning to business planning. Everyone needs to be in the same room, and everyone needs to be creative in terms of problem solving, really. So that is the advice, not just think about, oh, this is an amazing idea. Well, yes, but will it make money for the company? Because at the end of the day, you're in business.
And this is your first time in Australia?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Exciting.
Yes.
All five days of them. Are there any Australian brands that you are, drawn to, or that you've noticed, etc., or is it more about an aesthetic for us, or a way of life?
Well, I think there are a lot of Australian brands that are they're globally famous. You guys are very globally present, but I would say that for me is Australian lifestyle that is actually a brand. And that's what I saw firsthand. And then your sort of environmental commitments, and then how innovative you are in terms of food, and how committed you are to clean food and balanced lifestyle and just clean living overall. And I think there is a ton that other continents can learn from you, and I would say that's a fantastic brand, and I think you should do more with that.
That luxury lifestyle, but more clean.
It's and I think you're actually forerunners of that modern luxury, which is fantastic food, fantastic health, physical, mental, health, like all sorts, and then happiness overall. And I'm lucky that I was able to see it firsthand in Sydney.
Yeah, happiness indeed.
Well, right, yes.
Well, and also because you're in America right now.
Honestly, in New York, you get, someone tells you, go F yourself before you have coffee. And here, and here everyone is just so nice. I'm like, oh. Feels good.
Don't worry, that happens in Sydney. Trust me. So lastly, what is next for Anna? Because I do know you've got some pretty exciting things on the table, and you're going back to do them.
I am
Can
going
you
back
say,
to do.
can you say
I
too
can't
much?
say, but it's just
Can't say too
one
much.
gigantic $35 billion brand.
35 billion?
35 billion, yeah, it's massive.
Wow.
So yeah. And it's not in fashion, it's in different areas, CPG, yes, but it's a fantastic, they want cultural influence strategy. So I'm unbelievably excited, and it's a retainer for a year, so I can't wait for that going, and I'm sure that in a year I'll be able to talk about everything, all fun things that we did. So
I am now trying to think
and
what
it's
it
a
is.
global remit, so that's kind of like a big thing. And then one iconic American outerwear brand that's 150 years old, and honestly, America hasn't been around that long, so it's probably like one of the first brands, and I'm very excited about that. So I have those two things for the next year with the team, and that's a great, I want to focus on work for the next year, rather, because when you're in brands, you need to set...
What, unlike last year, when you had a podcast and a book?
No, last year, when I had the job with and 150 people to manage, and, so yeah, now it's,
Well, we are very thrilled to have you here, and pretty honoured, actually, to be honest, that you can
thank
squeeze
you for
us
having
in
me.
to your
Thank you,
35 billion company.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was great. Thank you.